Did you know that rosé is considered the world's first wine? It was also the favorite of royalty back in the day, and now today's royalty celebrities often choose rosé as their brand of choice if they're launching a wine. Also, what are some of the backstories of the most famous producers and brands like Whispering Angel, Domaine Tempier, and Domaines Ott? Well, tonight you're going to get those stories and tips and more from our guests, whom I'll introduce momentarily. But if you're watching this on the replay, please get into the comments and type the word replay. I want to know where you're logging in from, what's the weather like, what's in your glass, and of course, if you're here with me on the live stream, get into the comments. I'm Natalie McLean, and I teach online food and wine pairing classes, and you've just joined one of the most passionate groups of wine lovers who gather every Tuesday at 7 p.m. in Eastern to talk to the world's most interesting wine people. Now, I'm live streaming this video for the first time on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, but it's based on a recording that we made for my podcast, Unreserved Wine Talk. But I will be here with you live in the comments. With you watching this live stream. So get in there, let us know what tips and stories you're enjoying, what questions you still have, and I'll comment, as they say, in real time. All right, back to our guests. Rasmus Emborg is a journalist who has worked in the media for more than 25 years. He is the author of Beer Brothers, about two brothers who brewed beer, both brewed beer, but went into competition with each other heavily, which sounds like a very interesting book. He and his wife own a small vineyard in Provence. The grapes are mainly used for rosé wine. Jens Honoré is a photographer who has worked in the advertising industry for 30 years. In 2018, he published A Place to Dream for SOS Children's Villages, and in partnership with Jens Vilstrup, he published the book Farewell to a Black and White World about the UN's 2015 Sustainable Development Goals. He's also contributed to Building a Dream about Lego owner Kjeld Kirks and Christensen's realization of the Lego House. In 2021, he published The Right to Food about homeless people's relationship with food. He lives in New York and is a wine enthusiast. Rasmus joins us from his home in Copenhagen, Denmark. Jens from Northport in New York. Welcome, Rasmus and Jens. We're so glad you're here.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for having us.
Thank you very much.
Cheers. Okay. Now, before we get into the whole rosé book, maybe let's focus on how you two met. What was the first time you met? Where and when? And then most importantly, what was the first wine you shared together?
Well, actually, we met many years ago. Actually, I think we met just before we started drinking wine, because Jens and I, we are all school buddies, high school buddies. So I guess we were around 15, 16 years when we met for the first time. And I'm quite sure that the first alcohol we had together was beer.
Okay. Quite the good start. And how did you both develop a love for rosé at the same time, or did one lead the other, or how did that happen?
Well, I don't know about that because I know Rasmus for a while had that vineyard back in Provence, and I know he was kind of getting into it maybe a little bit different than I did. But my story was I've always been a wine buff for many, many years, been a collector, and it was all red wine. So 85-90% of what I drank was red wine, and then it became more white wine, and then I kind of revisited rosé wine and just got blown back by the quality. I used only to drink Tavel. We get into that later in the book as well, and then I just rediscovered rosé wine and discovered how great the quality was, and also that you can actually drink good wine advertised the right way, which is just up my alley working in the advertising industry. So that was kind of my way into rosé.
And Rasmus, what drew you to rosé wine? Was it quality or something else?
Well, I mean, my story with the rosé wine, I think I started this 12 years ago when my wife and I did a small stroll around in a southern France village, and suddenly looked into the window of a real estate agent, and we saw some pictures of an interesting property, and a month later, we were the owner of a small vineyard in Provence, and yeah, that kind of uh, made me dig into the world of rosé. I started exploring the world of rosé day by day, glass by glass, and as I got to know some of the best producers in the area and got to know what they were doing and how they year by year were developing the quality, and I realized that that you could really get some interesting wine experiences from rosé, and that it was not only something that could bring some good atmosphere around a swimming pool or down at the beach. Well, then it actually it got to me, and it was also at that time the idea of capturing this story, this ugly duckling story of a wine that had been looked down upon for so many years, but now was being turned into a real wine. That idea got to me, and yeah, I developed it in my head, and then I started talking to people around it, and I talked to Jens about it, and he immediately he was getting the idea, and yeah, the rest is history, you could say.
Absolutely. How close is your story to Peter Mail's story, A Year in Provence, Rasmus?
Well, well, I've read it. I've read the story, and I find it interesting. And I mean, I have some experiences like he had as well. Of course, mine is a more modern story, and I I have the vineyard as my my second home. My base is in Copenhagen, but yeah, it's been interesting, and every now and then it's given me some sweat in my face to develop this project. But I mean, I mean, besides having three kids, I think this is one of the best things my wife and I have ever done.
Wow. What do you find most satisfying about it?
Well, I'm a foodie. I like food. I like to cook. I like wine, and getting familiar with this area, southern France, which is where you have a lot of good food and good ingredients. You go to the markets, and I bring it home in my kitchen, and I start cooking. I visit the local producers. As you know, I have my own vines, and I've been discussing how, I mean, the character of the different varieties, and well, is this a good season or is it a bad season? Is it too warm? Has it been too rainy this spring, and so on? And I mean, it is an adventure for me. It has brought some new dimension to my life.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say one of the key differences, Jens, about your book here and Peter Mail's or any other book on rosé is it's photographed beautifully. You have the book there. Can you hold it up? There you. Wow, and it's a good size too.
It is.
So yeah, show us some of the pictures. Now, for those who are listening on the podcast, you'll have to go to the show notes and you can watch the video or you can see pictures. But what was your approach, Jens, when you were photographing for this book? Like, how did you? I mean, it's such a big topic. How did you approach it?
Well, that's a very good
Oh, I
question.
can't hear you. There you go.
Yeah,
Yep.
there. So it's a very good question because while we were discussing the kind of upbringing of the book, we were kind of determined on making something that was also like an homage to the winemakers because, as you probably know, as a wine professional, that making good bottle of rosé is not easy, and it's been kind of looked upon on this kind of spillover wine, secondary wine, and with our discovery and also with Rasmus is developing, having a place down in Provence, and my kind of going from red wine and thinking it was too much and kind of getting more and more into rosé wine. We discovered that it was more than a trend, because a trend, if it's not good, it's not quality, it would go away within 2 years. And we've seen what happened in the market, and it was really a big shift, not only for 2 years, but it stayed there for a long time. And the funny part was that all that market share that was going to Rosé went from red wine drinkers, or they lost red wine drinkers. So no matter what,
so it was red wine drinkers who were migrating over to Rosé rather than mostly white?
Yeah, the white wine has stayed the same, and Rosé has kind of overtaken white wine now, and all the market shares in that market has gone from red wine into Rosé wine. And as you probably know, Rosé wine is basically red wine, but it's very different in the approach and also drinkability. But getting back to your question, Rasmus and I, we had a lot of talks and a long time preparing the book, because as you know, if you see one vineyard, you kind of seen them all. You pick a grape and you press it and you produce wine. And so we spent a lot of time in our pre-production finding different stories, all based on high quality Rosé wines, also showing that Rosé wine can be produced all over the world. And you have different approaches, and all the story and the go-to approach to how to make a successful Rosé wine is very different. So that was kind of the benchmark we put on there. And then secondly, we don't have any sponsors for the book. We want to be independent because we want to do everything ourselves. So every word is written by Rasmus, and every photograph in the book is done by me. So that was kind of the approach we used to kind of, approaching the winemakers, and they all were very happy about it. They understood the seriousness of the book, but at the same time also wanted to show that it's a coffee table book with big great photos in.
Yes.
So once they heard our demands to get there, it was like, and it's also done over a whole year to show that winemaking is a year-long process. So
all the different seasons, there's a winter
different
shot.
Seasons, right? But then some of the winemakers we approached were more hesitant to be on board, because who are you again? And we didn't have names in the wine industry. We just like a photographer and a journalist, right? But then some of them understood it, and we just had the serendipity of meeting the right people at the right time, and getting some really significant producers on board, and that made the whole process much easier. So what I did and what Rasmus did was we went there several times, and we wanted access to all the assets of making wine in the wine cellar. We also, of course, during the picking season, Rasmus had a sit-down interview with the wine producers, the people who were like behind the brand. So, it was a big task, but also we want to make a book that is interesting. It's not only a coffee table book for looking at my pictures, please do, but it's also really, really well written by Rasmus. Because we want to, pay respect to these winemakers. So by working over a whole season, we also made it more easy for me to make it more interesting to look at. And then the last thing I want to say to answer your question, it's got a little long here, is that each portrait of the winemaker is done in black and white on an analog camera.
Black and white photos, yes, very
black
dramatic.
Black and white photos.
Of the
I did on an old 4x5 inches technical camera, because we want to show that respect and the homage to these winemakers. So that was a really great approach. And when they saw us coming with all that stuff, they were like, "Oh, you guys are serious," because there's been a lot of winemaking books about Rosé that was not that serious, more about like the colors, and you get seduced by that because the marketing department behind Rosé is much stronger and much better, in my opinion, than red. And they also needed that to get it going. But once it was going, you actually taste what's in the bottle.
And so do you think the black and white approach to your photos of the winemakers conveyed the seriousness, or is that the message you were trying to convey, that it's not all rainbows and unicorns?
Exactly. And also because most of those guys, they're not used to sit down for a portrait. They have, like some of the big ones. I just showed the photo of Sachet Le Chien. Meeting him is like...
Whispering Angel.
The Whispering Angel guy, sorry. Yeah, thank you very much, Natalie. Yeah. But meeting him was just like, it's rare. And for us to be given that chance and showing up with that camera and telling him what was the purpose, that just gained respect. And then they saw what we were doing. And also we sent, of course, all the photographs to different people, and they were like, wow. And it was just like, mutual respect.
Terrific, terrific. Now, you, in terms of writing the book, Rasmus, what was the most challenging or difficult aspect of doing this?
Well, where to start? Well, actually, it's. Allow me to turn it upside down because I actually think it's been quite a joyride. Uh, I'm a journalist by education, also by heart. I'm a sucker for a good story, and I from the beginning I think we were thrilled by this overall narrative about this wine that had been looked down upon, but now was developing into a real wine. And I mean, in the beginning, the tough part was to convince the producers that that we were serious, and to convince them that this was a great idea to make this book, and it was great for them to be part of it. Of course, as Jens said, it's really important to say that I mean we have been knocking on all doors. We have chosen the different producers, and choosing these 13 different producers was quite a job as well. And our ambition was to find producers who were among the most significant producers around the world, but we also wanted them to have a good story on their own. So actually, you can read each chapter about each producer on its own, because I mean, Domaines Ott, Château des Clans, Sagilachin, Lobes de Heredia from Rioja, Domaine Tompier, Perrier Chouette at Champagne. I mean, all these producers, they have a great story on their own. At the same time, they bring a piece to the overall puzzle, if you understand. They have a significant role in the development of this category. From, I mean, Domaines Ott, who we consider you can say the aristocrat of the category. Marcel Ott was the first one who wanted to produce rosé in the way that we know it today, and up till Sagilachin of Château des Clans, who really set fire to the revolution. And I mean, this has, I mean, it's been tough, and it's been hard work, and then we had the pandemic coming along, also giving some challenges while we were doing our research. But it's been really, I mean, an experience of our life to meet these people, to have them open their doors for us, to open their minds and their hearts, and also to serve some real good wine.
Absolutely. Let's dig into Domaines Ott. Plays a significant role in your book as the pioneer of rosé. You write he was the first one in the world to treat rosé as a wine in its own right, rather than an afterthought. What are we going to do with this leftover juice? Why was that so radical in 1912? Was it simply because no one was doing it, or tell us a bit more about that, and why Marcel Ott decided to go with rosé?
Well, Marcel Ott, he came from the northern part of France. He had a degree in agriculture, and actually he was on his way to Tunisia to be a wine producer, but stopped on his way in Provence. And the way I mean, of course, we've not talked to Marcel, but we've talked to his relatives, Jean-François Ott, who today is running Domaines Ott, and Marcel Ott was fascinated by rosé wine because he actually thought that this was a wine that had the taste of the grapes. This was the kind of wine where you could actually taste the grapes most precisely. And
why did he believe that?
but because that was his own experience from experimenting with different types of wine at that time, and also for many years after. Rosé wine was a byproduct. If you wanted to produce a powerful red wine, you could let the juice bleed in the beginning of the fermentation. This is called the saignée method. And this juice that came out, wow, well, what should we do about it? Well, we can turn it into wine, and then we can use it for the people working in the farms, or I mean, for as a thirst quencher. Uh, but he was
Right, because they, just for those who aren't familiar, they bled the juice, meaning they took off some to concentrate the red that was left, but the runoff juice at was it the head of the bleeding, that was the light pink, non-serious stuff they gave to the farmers or the workers.
Exactly,
and
yeah, exactly. And I mean, if we should talk just a little bit about the techniques, rosé wine is made from blue grapes or the red wine grapes, and it's the what do you call it? What is around, not the juice, but the I forgot the word. The shells, no, the skin. Sorry, the skin.
The skin,
Yes.
The skin,
and the seeds.
Yeah.
the skin who's giving the color to the wine, and that is giving the tannins. And if you let the wine ferment with the skin, you end up with a red wine. And
Sure.
if you in the beginning of the fermentation take out, you let it bleed, as you described, then the ratio between the juice and the skin is changed, and then you can get
goes
an even
down,
more
yeah.
powerful red wine. And this was pretty much the way rosé wine was produced, not with the ambition to actually to do rosé wine, but because you had a residual product that you could turn into something. And actually, this is a part of why rosé for so many years have had a bad reputation, because it's been considered as a byproduct, and it also meant that that when the winemakers should choose what variety to have in their vines, where to position their vineyard, and at what time to harvest the grapes. This was all with the target to make the best possible red wine. What
Right.
changed, and what Marcel Ott was the first one to actually do, was to choose the variety of grapes that gave the best rosé, to position the vineyards in the best possible way to make good rosé, and to choose the harvest time with the ambition to make the best possible rosé. And that ended
And
up,
were the best grapes for rosé Grenache?
well,
Syrah Grenache?
that's Grenache is the dominant rosé grape. It's the most popular rosé grape all around the world. But you can also use Syrah. You can use Pinot Noirs, and so there's a lot of
Sure.
there's a lot of yeah.
What
But
makes Grenache so good for rosé?
But I just wanted to
Oh,
figure, so
got a
you
picture
see this
there.
photo here, right? I mean, this is just to emphasize
Yep.
what Rasmus is saying here, that the picking time, and as you also said, that the coloring of the wine is in the skin.
Okay.
So once you peel
Right.
like a grape, you cannot tell if it's a white wine grape or red wine grape. So that's a very valid and
Sure.
very important point of why rosé has the color it has. Sorry.
Yeah, and Grenache, does it have a lot of color in the skins then? So it imparts that delicate color before, without too much pressing? Is that why Grenache is good?
Grenache is it's a grape with thin skin and very little pigment. So it
A
brings
little pigment,
a
okay.
little pigment. So it brings little color to the wine, and this is what a lot of producers are aiming for. Is and this is the kind of rosé wine that is the most trendy these years. Is pale,
Mm-hmm.
pale, 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 dry, crisp wine, what we call the Provence style rosé wine. But also Grenache has this natural sweetness that applies well to rosé, the rosé wine category as well.
Okay. And so Domaines Ott has that iconic bottle. Jens, I don't know if you can describe it. It's almost like two bulbs or something.
Yeah.
Well, how would you describe that bottle? And did you photograph that one because it was so eye-catching?
I did, and let me just find it. It's actually
Sure.
from Greece, and he tried not only for rosé wine, but all his wines are produced and sold in those bottles because he wanted to kind of create a whole new standard for the industry. I mean, as you probably know in the book, there's a few of them who are like only rosé wine makers, but most of the producers in the book actually are winemakers, and they make three different wines: red, white, and rosé.
Right.
And Domaines Ott's wine has that very specific looking bottle. Let's see here. That's the one here, right? And that's actually one of his.
Right. So it's this elongated, but it bulbs out and then comes back in. Is there a name for that style, or it's just Domaines Ott, their style?
No, they found back in Greece for olive oil, and he said that the way they were cooling the wine and storing the wine was the best shape for wine bottles. And the one we had, the Bordeaux style with the high shoulders, and the Burgundy style, which is like the rounder shoulders.
Right.
That's the most kind of common wine bottles today, and even today. So he made a mark. It didn't work out, but he kind of stubbornly stuck to his philosophy. And even today, when you buy a bottle for Domaines Ott, whether it's red wine or rosé, it isn't that kind of bottle.
Actually, a ceramic bottle was found in the ground of Chateau de Celle, which was the first domain of Domaines Ott. They have 3 different domains today, and that inspired them to make this bottle. As Jens said, they tried to make it the bottle of the rosé wine category. Like then, if you look at a Burgundy wine or a Bordeaux wine, you have the same bottle shape, but yeah, they didn't
And
manage.
I noticed. Yeah, with the bottles for a lot of rosés, like if I even look at modern day, like Kylie Minogue, she's got like glass that's kind of, I don't know what you call it, not shattered, but like textured glass.
Yeah.
There's a lot of the design for bottles in rosé and their labels are just wild. They're all over the map, which is kind of pretty. But what are the wildest designs you've noticed, Jens?
But that's the kind of what I spoke about before, that the advertising kind of approach to rosé wine, which is much bigger impact on that type of wine than the 2 other types of wine. And I think it's fascinating. The problem is that a lot of wine connoisseurs kind of look down upon rosé wine because it's more trendy, and I think it's fantastic because, as I said before, if the content is not good, you can make all the fancy bottles you want. It doesn't hold up.
True.
But
Right.
I mean, we've seen, as Rasmus also mentioned, we had a trip of our lifetime here, and we saw so many great bottles. But one of the Gerard Bertrand, who is the Languedoc kind of producer, he makes a lot of different wines.
Gerard
He makes a wine. He makes a wine that when you turn around, it looks like a bouquet of roses. So you both, as a husband and wife,
Côte de Roses.
Côte de Rose, yeah.
Yeah. So you.
I love that bottle.
That,
Just for those who've not seen it, the bottom is like etched glass of roses, and people empty that of the wine and then use it as a water decanter.
So if you go to a dinner party, instead of bringing a bouquet of roses of flowers, you bring this bottle to the
this
to the
wine,
hostess.
yes.
Yeah.
And some of their marketing has these bouquets of the bottles.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
So I love those kind of approaches that you are creative with your product, and it doesn't have to be dull, and you can make fantastic labels and then also, and Rasmus got into that book in the writing also, that we have this discussion about what is the right color of rosé. With us who love rosé wine, is a little bit over the top, but I mean it means a lot to people, and it's a marketing thing that you have to respect.
Absolutely. Now, before we leave bottles, I have heard that beautiful bottles. Oh yeah, with
Yeah,
the Côte de Roses in an ice bucket. Beautiful. Looks like a bouquet of roses.
It
Um,
does.
but I've heard recent research that says rosé and white wine in clear white glass, up to 30% is being affected by light strike. So, their aromas are being changed or made worse by light strike, and that it's only when you have glass that's either amber or brown that you get protection from UVB and UVH or UVA, whatever,
Yeah.
light. Um, did you find out any of that sort of research or data when you were looking at this? I mean, the industry doesn't seem to have any desire to move away from clear glass bottles. It seems part of the marketing of rosé, but I mean, if you think 30% of rosés and whites might be ruined by light strike, that seems like not a
But
great
but it
trade-off.
but it's such a great marketing stunt that such a big part. You have to understand 60% of all rosé wine is bought by women, and a lot of women. I don't know, I'm a man, but I love to look at those colors, and that's a trade-off, of course. We actually
True.
saw something different, and Rasmus get more into that. But I mean, from the marketing aspect of it, the commercial aspect of it it's a huge marketing thing, and it's a very important part of why you drink rosé is the color of it.
I think we touched this
Correct.
we touched this issue in the book as well, and you are perfectly right, Natalie. I mean, it's not good for the wine to be in a transparent bottle. And I mean, actually, you can test it. If you, on a sunny day, you bring a glass of rosé to a terrace and you let the sun shine on it for 15
Right.
minutes, it get this not very nice color. It changes, and
Amber.
when you start drinking it, it's getting flat, and it loses
Flat.
yeah, it loses something
Like the
that
fruitiness?
yeah, well,
Yeah, it's liveliness,
the liveliness, yeah, the
liveliness.
crispiness and
Yeah,
so on. It's just getting flat, and
flat.
actually in the book we have one producer, Closibon, also from the southern part of France, who actually is going against the trends and is producing all their bottles in a brown bottle. And I
Oh wow.
mean, you never know about the future, but if we talk again in 3, 4, 5 years, I think we will have more rosé wine in brown bottles. And I think
Brown bottles.
this is a development that comes with the development of the quality of the wine. Because
Yes. And the sophistication of the drinker too.
exactly that for sure, as Jens described. I mean, it looks good. The color of the rosé
Yes.
in a transparent bottle, and sometimes in this creatively designed bottle, and often also with some creative labels on it. I mean, it looks good on the shelves in the liquor store. It looks good on Instagram, and I think this is a part of the popularity of rosé. At the same time, it's also a reason why the bad reputation of rosé wine sticks
True.
to some of I mean, what you can call the wine establishment, and
Yeah.
is being used as them convincing that this is not a real wine. But I think at this, what we are seeing now is that the rosé wine category is developing. You can get a lot of boring rosé wine, and there's a lot of boring rosé wine out there, just like red and white. But you are seeing some really high quality rosé wine, and you see diversity, and you see wine that you can pair with food and so on. And I think that this will be more important than to look at a beautiful color through a transparent bottle. At the same time,
Just decant it.
just to end this, there's also this thing about about what do you call it, the recirculation, that you can much easier, you can recirculate or reuse brown glass than white glass. So
Oh, it's better for the environment.
exactly. So there's an environmental issue here as well, and I think
Huh. I didn't know that.
this will I think this will influence the producers in the future. And we already
Absolutely.
talked to some of the producers mentioning this and saying, well, also to meet the demand of the consumers, they want to be more environmental. And I think the consumer, more and more consumers will also end up preferring a wine in a brown bottle, in a brown glass bottle, also due to environmental reasons.
That's great to know. I didn't realize white glass was not as recyclable. So let's talk about Domaines Ott's Étoile Star. It's approximately $150 bottle of rosé. Consumers are used to paying $15 to $20. I think Gerard Bertrand is now producing one that's close to $200.
Yeah.
What role do these ultra premium rosés play? Are they like, when you see the runway, the latest Versace, you could never afford the suit, but you'll buy the scarf or the purse? Like, what's going on with these extremely expensive rosés? What's your take on them?
I mean, I think, still 200 euros. That's a lot for rosé wine. But if you look into the red wine category and the white wine category,
sure,
it's not a lot. And I think this is showing us how the rosé wine category is developing. Charles Lechin
right.
of Chateau des Clang, the guy with the Whispering Angel, he was the first to make Garros, made of 100 years old Grenache grapes. Or from 100-year-old vines with Grenache, and when he put Garros into the market with a price slab of 120 euros, I think it was at that time, some years ago. I mean, everybody was, whoa, what is going on? But I think these this is not part of his success. Garros is not a very big part of his business, but Garros has given the attention to Charles Lechin and to the category, and I think it has helped changing the mind of the wine consumers and make them believe that it's worth paying a little more than 20 euros for a bottle of rosé wine. And
there's an anchoring effect of saying, "Hey, the top pinnacle wines."
And every time a producer does this, Domaines Ott with Étoile or Girard Bertrand with Clos de Temple, and I mean at this moment they're actually competing to make the world's best rosé and also the world's most expensive rosé. And I think this competition and this development is lifting the whole category because it helps convincing people that rosé can be a really good wine. It can be a real wine, and it can compete with red and white wine on the top shelves.
Absolutely.
And Natalie, you have to understand when you see something like this here, right? I mean, this is not
this
cheap
barrel
to make.
cellar, is that Domaines Ott?
Yeah.
Right.
No, that's actually from Whispering Angel, Chateau des Clang.
The Whispering Angel, yes.
And we also.
Yeah. Let's talk more about Whispering Angel. Yeah, Whispering Angel created a big splash in the Canadian market. It came out at I think I don't know if it's $35 or $45. What was the key to success? Now, great quality, you have to have that. Was there something else? Was it the name? Did they do something specifically in the marketing of this rosé? Why do you think Whispering Angel has been so successful beyond, of course, its great quality?
Well, the surrounding of the wine was he's got a background in winemaking from Bordeaux, where he's got a really famous family and all that. But before he even ventured into like selling the wine vineyard up in there in Bordeaux and buying this new vineyard down in the Provence, he had a plan, he had a vision, and that was purely driven by marketing experience because he's been out there on the road for so many years. This is a French wine with an English name, right? and that's not by coincidence. It is like thought through from the get go, and then Rasmus will take over, more the technical aspect of what he did and how he became so successful. But he had a plan even before he started making wine. He had a clear plan for how to marketing his wine worldwide, and understand that this whole trend of rosé would be a global thing, not a French thing, not an American thing, not a Canadian thing, not a Danish thing, but a global thing, which also kind of underscored the need of our book. And I think that is super fascinating. And again, if then he didn't make a good wine, that whole thing will fizzle out within a year or two. But they could go to Rasmus now, and he can talk about that whole aspect about being a super high-end winemaker, and then packaging that into something that I can relate to, and knowing what is selling and what is not selling.
Yeah,
because it reminds me of the Super Tuscans. They disrupted the whole category.
Exactly.
So
Correct.
what did Sacha Lachine do? He got an English name, a beautiful English name, Whispering Angel. But what else specifically did he do to market this so cleverly, Rasmus?
Actually, Chateau des Clang is just 5 kilometers from my own vineyard. So before before digging into this, before starting the actual research of this book, I visited him a number of times, and he's definitely part of the fascination and curiosity that led to the idea of making this book. And I think actually the story of Sacha Lachine is very representative of the whole story, because he comes out of a very famous wine family from Bordeaux with a.
Is he related to Alexis Lachine?
Yes, that's his father.
That is part of it.
Oh, and what was he famous for? Just as a famous Bordeaux winemaker, or did he write a famous book too?
He wrote.
Lachine?
He wrote some really famous wine books, and he's been given credit to actually being the one who introduced the American audience to French wine, and he had this wine
Godfather kind of image.
Yeah, and he had this castle in Margaux, and well, he died, Alexis Lachine, and Sacha, his son, inherited this wine castle, and a few years later he sold it. And
that's a big move. Wow.
And he spent the money on purchasing Chateau des Clang down in Provence, at that time a low status wine region, and he said to the whole world, I want to make rosé wine, an equally low status wine. And the wine establishment was shaking their heads and said, "What are you doing?" And Lachine, he didn't care. He said, "I want to turn rosé into a real wine." And yeah, as Jens is showing here, and everyone looked at us like we were completely crazy. I guess we were. He tells us when we talked to him. Today, to cut it short, today nobody is shaking their heads and nobody's laughing at Sacha Lachine, because he is, one of, together with Domaines Ott, and he is probably one of the most true pioneers of this Rosé Revolution. I think it's important to emphasize that, yeah, he's been good at marketing. He's a good trade man.
He's a businessman.
He's a businessman, but he's done it on the foundation of a good product. He had a good nose for what was the demand of the wine consumers of the future. He saw that the rosé champagne was rising, and he saw the popularity of Sauvignon Blanc, a wine from New Zealand and other areas, is
taking off, yeah,
fruity, crispy wine. And he thought, well, these two things, I can try to capture in a good rosé wine. And he invested in his production from the beginning, believing that he could hire the price point, and that he could produce a wine that that could be more than 10 or 20 euros, and he definitely took a risk, but he invested in a lot of technology in his cellar. Jens just showed you a picture from down there. We've been following the production, and he has kind of he's when the grapes come in from the vineyards, they are being picked, and if a grape is not of a decent quality, it's taken away. So he's every
he's meticulous.
In every level of the production, he has hired the standard, and he teamed up with a winemaker that he knew from Bordeaux, and that was also willing to put all his expertise and experience into developing this high quality wine. So I think it's important to say that he saw a demand, he created the product to meet the demand, and on top of that, he's a good businessman and has helped that has helped him selling the wine. And today, Whispering Angel is not only a wine, it's a phenomenon. And actually in the US, it's the best-selling French wine. Also
in North America.
Also, if you include red and white wine, and it's the most popular rosé wine in the whole world.
Wow. Okay. Wow. So let's talk about Domaine Tempier in Bandol, because it didn't come from such a strong marketing push. I do remember reading Kermit Lynch, the importer from California, his famous book, Adventures Along the Wine Route. Marvelous, and his discovery of Domaine Tempier in Bandol. You say Domaine Tempier. How would you differentiate Domaine Tempier from Domaines Ott? Like, give us a picture of Domaine Tempier.
Well, first of all, it's a much smaller business. It's originally Domaine Tempier was a wedding gift to Lulu and Lucien Perrault, and they were not very much into to winemaking. And we're back in the 30s here, and the phylloxera had been ruining a lot of vineyards around Europe, but Lucien Perrault, he tasted a wine made of Mourvèdre, the grape that is the main grade of Bandol, where Domaine Tempier is located. Bandol is the kind of the western part of Provence, and he kind of wanted to explore this grape, this Mourvèdre grape, that is very different from, for instance, the Grenache grape. It's a more thicker skin. It's much more complicated. It needs a whole lot of sun to mature and so on. But if you hit it right, you really get some interesting wine. So the big difference from the Bandol Rosé, the Domaine Tempier Rosé wines, and for instance the Domaines Ott and Chateau d'Esclange wine is the use of Mourvèdre. And this gives a bit more powerful wine, a wine that can age, which we experienced during some of our visits, and it is really.
How long can it age?
Well,
definitely.
Well, it can age for a long time, and actually. Daniel Ravier, who is the winemaker down there now, during one of our visits, we had a tasting, and then we tasted the recent years, and we tasted one that was from the 90s, and then he just said, "Well, wait a minute, I'll be back soon." And then he came back with a bottle. It looked old. He didn't want to show us the vintage, but he served it for us, and we had this. This is one of the most incredible wine experiences of the whole trip, of our whole research for this book. A rosé wine still with beautiful color, a bit more amber, and the taste. Of course, it had lost some freshness, but it had developed some complexity, some thick, some dry apricot. I mean, and I mean, we were. It was mind blowing. And then he showed us the bottle, and it was from 1979.
Wow.
And this was a kind of a proof that you can age. I mean, if the wine is good, you can also age a rosé wine, and the flavor develops. And Mourvèdre especially is really good for aging wines.
Is Mourvèdre better for aging wines because of the tannins or the color pigmentation? Does it make it hold together longer than, say, Grenache?
Depending on what wine you're making, but it was a profound experience because when you talk about the different grape varieties, it's like actually you talk about Grenache, you know, the main grape in Châteauneuf de Pape, which is like really big red wines, is also really good at aging because it's all depending on the producers. But I mean, just to emphasize the story what Rasmus told, it was a profound experience for us to see it and try that because it was. I mean, I drank a lot of wine in my life. There was more looking into top 5 here of the best experience of wine, and also he's a humble guy. He's a hardworking guy. It's quite different from some of the other kind of high end winemakers. They're very super high end, and also we found it interesting that a guy from Berkeley called Kermit Lynch, back in the 70s when he was a kind of a hippie guy, riding around on his motorbike in the south of France, stumbling upon these guys and just saying this is fantastic, and kind of start taking that kind of wine into the United States. I mean, that's one thing we're going to talk about a little bit later, but it's they have a heritage that is really worth putting in the book because it's a totally different approach. It's not outgoing, it's not loud, it's not based on any kind of marketing tricks, but it's like when you get into it and understand what they're doing there and been doing for such a long time, it's a profound wine, and it's really, really high-end wine. And it's actually also that specific wine we have here in the book is always sold out. Once you come to the different markets where it's sold, it's gone like that because people who are into rosé wine. And the funny thing is, this is actually a wine that's been around even before we talked about any Rosé Revolution, right?
Yeah, and I think that
Right.
that is important. That's important. That like Domaines Ott, Domaines Ott, they have made this rosé wine for many years and didn't really
Decades.
care about the trends. Of course, now they experience that they are being sold out every year because the Rosé Revolution, their wine has become even more popular. But they have, I mean, just like López de Heredia from Rioja, they've just been doing what they have been doing all the years. But these are exceptions, and I think. Talking about aging, Natalie, and you say, can a Grenache-based rosé wine age? And I think a lot of things when it comes to rosé is what it kind of out for the verdict. That because rosé has only been taken seriously for maybe 15, 20 years. With these exceptions that we have just described, it also means that we actually there's a lot of questions that are still unanswered. For instance, Gérard Bertrand from Languedoc, who today produces the most expensive rosé wine, Clos de Temple, and I think he's produced it for now about 10 years or so. He makes sure that he saves some bottles every year because he also wants to know how the wine is in 10, 20, 30 years. But he still doesn't know. He believes that his wine Clos de Temple can age and develop. And the first results, I mean, has been really good. But we will see in the future. And that counts for a lot of produces high quality wine that we will see how they develop in the future. But for sure, I think.
And what are you showing there, Jens?
So that is where the top cuvee is made, and it's particularly field where you have this wine, and it's
for Gerard Pertren.
Yeah,
and he is.
Okay. They're in pyramids.
Yeah.
Why are they in pyramids?
Because he believes he's a Rudolf Steiner kind of guy, so he believes in the biodynamic winemaking,
the energy,
which is the energy. Rudolf Steiner was this Swiss guy who kind of came up with, it's all named
biodynamics. Yep.
And the top level is called Demeter, Demeter. And it's all Demeter because he believes, you have to pick the grapes at a certain time according to the moon and all that. And the funny thing is that he actually used his own kind of personal experience as a person to kind of develop that system, because he used to be a professional rugby player. Rugby is a very big sport in France. He used to represent France on the national team. He had some liver problems because he got injured. It's a very kind of demanding, tough sport, and he couldn't get well by using his normal doctor, and he kind of started using, alternative doctors who believe in that alternative Rudolf Steiner methods. And once he got into winemaking, and Rasmus can walk into that later why he did that, he started to take that method that kind of worked on his own body, say, I'll kind of give that to my own wines as well. I mean, and he's like, we're in the metric system, so I can say he was 2.5 meters. So he's 6'5". Norman's guy used to be a rugby player, but he's the most gentle guy, and he believes in all that astrology and all that. It's fascinating, and that's also what it makes so appealing about these high-end producers in rosé wine. They want to show the world that, we make also really good red wine and white wine and whatever, but we also are able to make this super high-end wine. And he's a kind of a hybrid between Domaines Tempier and Sachet Le Chien at Whispering Angel, because he's both really, really good at marketing, but also it comes from a very profound place that, he uses actually his own experience by how he got well and overcame some of these obstacles and challenge he had with his body due to the sport he did.
I didn't know that his personal background, how he recovered his own health, is now how he views, treating the health of his vines. That's really interesting. And Domaines Tempier, just backtracking to them, they really kind of elevated food and wine. I mean, Alice Waters was a good friend, or is a good friend of Kermit Lynch. She runs Chez Panisse in Berkeley, California. Kermit Lynch is the importer there. They often collaborated. Famous restaurant. But, Domaines Tempier really also elevated Provençal cuisine. What do you think are the famous, or what really amazing dishes go well with Provençal cuisine, or the rosé, that are symbolic of Provençal cuisine? Oh, you've got some pictures, of course. Okay. Maybe you can describe them, Jens.
Well, that was another. Those visits was just full of surprises, right? So the second time we came back, she said, "You want to stay for lunch?" And we like, sure. And then she went to the market because, as Rasmus told, Lulu, the mother of all Provence food, she kind of gave that heritage to her daughter, who used to run a restaurant. And she went to the market and went on shopping so we could eat that delicious food, which is basically very, very simple local ingredients. And it was a lot of fish. We had mussels that day, and of course they produced their own olive oil. And it's just like, it was so simple, but it was also so very good. And I'll just show photos here, but I mean,
what a beautiful shot of mussels and the rosé and the light coming in. Oh,
and then Daniel, the winemaker, just came by. Oh, are you ready for lunch? And he just let me bring some bottles, and Rasmus just sitting there. It was unreal. And of course, I had to take off the camera and take some photos because I was just overwhelmed. And that's one of the things that gave me goosebumps talking about it right now, because it was a profound experience, and it was one of those things that we couldn't have anticipated that before when we started doing the marketing. The research for the book. That was some of the gifts we were giving by kind of returning, and they saw how serious we were and how we appreciated the wine, and then we were invited back. And I hope that you get that feeling when you're sitting with the book, that is not only something we just did, rush through. We spent the whole day there and kind of you had to drive that day. Yeah, so I had an extra glass of wine, and we didn't leave for a long time, and our schedule was kind of shuffled around because of that. But that was also that we had a great experience, and hopefully you can feel that when you're sitting with the book.
And actually,
Absolutely.
Kermit Lynch actually lives now just a few kilometers away from Domaines Ott in Vendôme,
Ah.
and we visited him at his house, and so he's in the book. Jens made some great portraits.
Oh, sorry, I'm not hearing you quite well, Rasmus. I don't know if your speaker has been muffled.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, we visited
okay.
him in his house that is just located a few kilometers from Domaines Ott in Vendôme.
That's great.
And I also spoke to Alice Waters about her relationship to especially Lulu Perrault. I mean, the wife of Lucien, who made the wine. Lulu made the food and was well known for throwing these dinner parties. And I mean, back to your question, what food goes well with rosé? And I think the Provençal cuisine. I mean, with olive oil, more olive oil,
Seafood.
and tomatoes, herbs. Yeah, shellfish, fish, cheese, goat cheese. I mean, have a glass of rosé
It's so
with
food friendly.
your
Yeah.
chèvre salad. Have a glass of rosé. I would say also go with lamb with a glass of rosé and I mean. So yeah, I think the Provençal cuisine is goes very well with rosé wine.
Now, these producers that we've talked about, sorry?
No, I just want to say that when you're talking about food and wine, as you also see in the book, we have different wines, and you'll find some of the wines are really, really well made for food, especially the Tavel wines, we'll talk about later with the Honoré producer. But it's also to show that there's actually a difference between the different rosé wines.
Mm-hmm. Now, these producers have become sort of rock stars, celebrities in their own right. But let's talk about celebrities. It just seems like every celebrity that wants to make a wine these days, put their name on it, like a movie star wants to do rosé. I think John Legend, LVE, and then Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie, Miraval, John Bon Jovi, who collaborated actually with Gérard Bertrand and made Hampton Water. And there's more, Kylie Minogue. I mean, there's just so many, Mary J. Blige, holy smokes. Why do you think they all want to go with rosé? What is it? Because it appeals to so many palates, but why not like a big bold red or a beautiful round Chardonnay? Why rosé?
Well, I think, again, with my background in advertising, I think that rosé wine is much easier to embrace for a broad audience. It's harder to scare anybody off with a particular kind of wine. I worked a lot for big spirit companies over the years, and we also, when we always did those campaigns, we know that if you're marketing like cognac in the United States, you're catering to a black audience. If you're making champagne, so there's all these different categories where rosé wine has kind of they have a lot of lovers, but they don't have any enemies, and it's not talked down upon. So you can be like a serious musician, you can be a rocker, you can be like a pop star, whatever you are, you can always embrace rosé wine. And that's also, I think that it's not a coincidence they've done that, because you all know when you sit at a restaurant, you sit with that thick book of wines you can pick from the menu, and people sitting getting sick and tired about what wine to pick, where you just sit around a table, let's have a glass of rosé wine. And I think that approach also make it, when you're just a celebrity and not a good winemaker, it's way more bankable and easier to market, wherever you are, and especially if you're a global star. Funny enough, yes. We tried a lot of those wines, Rasmus and I, and I'll tell you, some of them are pretty good. Big bang for the buck.
What are your favorites? Which ones are working?
Hampton Waters is a great wine for the money, and actually something Rasmus mentioned before. If you look at the craftsmanship that goes into make a good wine, and all the the heavy investment they made in the wine cellar to make it the best possible wine. Actually, if you buy a Hampton Waters or you buy a Whispering Angel, you actually get a really, really high-end quality wine for the money you pay for it, compared to like a red wine. Miraval is a super good wine as well. It's nothing to do with, I mean, it is something to do with Brad Pitt because he's such a superstar. Then I tried some
But their
other
name
ones.
isn't even on the label.
No, and I think that's deliberately because they, first of all, they had a kind of very hard breakup, as you know, and also
Yes,
I
he
think
got
that,
custody.
yes, and also I think that they own the place and they bought the place because they spent a lot of time in France. Where, for instance, the Hampton Waters it is very deliberate that they picked the grapes from Charlotte Bertrand, even though it's got an American name and it's got a very American, pop star rocker. But they are actually, Rasmus stayed in the same room as the Sun and Bon Jovi does when they're down picking grapes. So that is real, and they've really been involved in it. And also because Bon Jovi, he lives out in the Hamptons in the summer where it's named after. So it makes it more legit.
Hampton Water, yeah.
Yes. So
yeah. Sure, absolutely. And even with Miraval, it's made by the Perrin family who makes Chateau Beaucastel. I mean, that's really high pedigree winemaking. Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
And again, this is I think something that you cannot emphasize enough, because I think this celebrity thing has not been very helpful when it comes to having the wine establishment's recognition of rosé wine. It gives the establishment another reason to say, oh, it's only Kylie Minogue and John Bon Jovi. It's not a real wine. But maybe, I mean, you can think wine is good or bad, but there's a lot of good wine out there that is also has, I mean, probably not the celebrities making the wine themselves. And as you said, the Perrin family is involved in the Miraval. But it's popularity on the foundation of quality, and us talking about the celebrities. I think this is all. I mean, why is it attractive for them to produce rosé wine? And again, I think this is also about marketing themselves, because rosé wine is also kind of has become a marker of the good life. That we should all strive for joy,
Mediterranean lifestyle,
joy and pleasure. In a busy world,
whether it's the Hamptons or Saint Tropez,
exactly, and
it's the same.
Well, you put on your straw hat and your linen shirt, and maybe you spit out some olive pits, and you drink a glass of rosé, and it's kind of the good life. And I think this is something that a lot of the celebrities will also like to be identified with.
Absolutely. Celebrity names just keep coming to mind. Sarah Jessica Parker with the New Zealand rosé. And anyway,
but then was actually one thing that's very important. He was not part of the book, but we looked a lot into Post Malone because he makes a wine called 15.
Oh yeah, Post Malone. That's right.
Yeah, and it's actually really, really good wine, because he's like this whoever he is, and his two favorite beverages is Bud Light and rosé wine. That pisses off the establishment so much, but nevertheless, he makes a really, really good wine. So,
yeah, who makes it? Who makes his rosé? Do you know the producer?
It's no, I don't know. It's made somewhere in Provence, but it's a
Provence
type of in existing. So they buy the grapes from a big producer, but they have a control of the production, and they produce a lot of wine because it's available all over the States in North America.
Yeah, it's popular.
Yeah.
And your book notes the significance as well, not just of celebrities, but of social media popularizing rosé. Of course, we've got Rosé All Day and Yes Way Rosé. And how significant do you think social media has been? And I guess that's yet another reason why experts or the establishment don't think it's a serious wine. But what are some examples of the impact social media has made?
Well, if you are like a big celebrity and you have X amount of followers on whatever media, especially Instagram, because it's a very photogenic wine, which is something that attracts. To be honest, even though I'm a wine lover, first of all, than a photographer. In this case, I could use my photographic background to kind of emphasize something that is super photogenic. It is easier to make a good book about, or Instagram account or whatever about a rosé wine. However, there's also a big kind of trap here, because if it's just because it's easy doesn't make it consistent. So again, what I think it's interesting here also to gain interest among young people who don't drink that much wine, especially not red wine, and that's why the red wine kind of part of the wine business is suffering so much. Is like, if you look into our kids, Rasmus and our kids are kind of the same age. If they drink wine, they drink a lot of white wine or rosé wine, because it's kind of like a celebratory wine. It's become a wine you kind of get around. You can get around it. You don't disagree about it. You don't sit there and be talked down upon if you don't know the terroir, the grapes or whatever. You just think it's great. It's tasteful, and it's a happy wine. And I think that whole thing about the celebrity thing, even though among the establishment, as Rasmus mentioned, could hurt the wine, that has the opposite effect among all the consumers. Because my daughter, who lives in London, she doesn't care about a wine writer, Jens Robinson, or some of these iconic wine writers they don't like. Or I mean, she's not the right one to mention, but Robert Parker, who's been very important for the wine business, he does not talk about rosé wine that much. My daughter doesn't know who he is, and she doesn't care.
Right.
What she cares about is that she's going to meet up at university on a Friday with a bunch of friends, and they want to they don't drink a bottle of red wine, they drink a bottle of rosé wine. And if it's endorsed by a rapper or rock music, whatever it is, it's only enhancing that experience.
It's true. And yet Jean-Francois Ott warns of rosé fatigue. Do you think this trend, if it's a trend of rosé, is there's a risk of too much rosé, or that people will swing back to something else?
No, I think maybe it can be over the top for a period of time, but I think it has a certain level, and it will fluctuate a little bit, of course. But I think that because the quality, as you also see in our book, what we go into great details describing, is that the quality of the wine is kind of the backbone of why this revolution has kind of lasted for more than just 2 seasons. And I think that's my personal opinion, that if you stick to your guns and believe in your product, you will succeed.
But I mean, allow me to add, I think of course there's a lot of bad, boring rosé being made out there. And I understand when Jean-Francois says that, we have to be aware that it doesn't take over the category, because I think a lot of people will be tempted to dig into this phenomenon and try to produce some rosé wine that they can turn into a big business. And one of the challenges is that we talked about the beauty of rosé wine, and a lot of people like to have this pale wine, and you cannot. Some producers may put too much priority into hitting this pale color, than that it harms the taste. So actually, it's a pale, boring rosé wine, but it looks good. And I think that is definitely something to look into. At the same time, I think rosé wine is establishing itself as a third wine category. And of course, there's a lot of good wine, and of course, there's a lot of bad wine. But this is the same thing when you look into the red wine category or the white wine category. So I think what we will see in the future will pretty much be the same as you have seen in the red and the white category. We think we still will see the quality develop. When it comes to also the higher price points, and at the same time you'll see a lot of boring rosé wine being produced. there will be definitely a demand for it, and as I mean, just look at the figures for the homeland of wine, France. I think today it's 3 out of 10 bottles now that is rosé wine. If you look at
Oh, wow.
the global consumption of wine, it's about 1 out of 10 bottles
Okay.
that is rosé, and yeah, maybe the growth will not be as significant as it has been the past 15, 20 years, but I think we are seeing a trend where red wine is giving away market shares to the rosé wine, whereas
Hmm.
white wine kind of has a more stable position.
Yeah, I would agree because the red wine, of course, it tends to go with heavier foods. I'm generalizing, and we're turning now to lighter foods.
That's a part.
People
Yeah.
want lower alcohol wines, all of this. So
Yeah.
tastes are changing, health concerns, and all the rest
Yeah.
of it. One of the big changes, though, too, and you two are case in point, is that more and more men are drinking rosé. How did that happen? Was there particular marketing or just I mean, rosé was stereotypically the drink of women, along with Pinot Grigio, Prosecco, and Chardonnay. What's going on with rosé and men?
Well, as I said
How
in
did
the
that
very
happen?
beginning, yeah, well, in the very beginning, I used to collect wine, and I still have a wine cellar, not as big as I used to, but I just got, I mean, a lot of my guys, they subscribe to Wall Street Journal Wine Club, which is a fantastic wine club, but it's over the top, big bold, Napa Valley, and I used to be a big fan of Barolos as well, and Chateau de Pape's wine, but it just like I'm also getting older and sitting drinking 16, 17%
Mm,
wine, and also I also with a
right.
white wine, that barrel, or a popcorn
The oak
Chardonnay,
aging. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know, I just one day was like I just had enough, and then by revisiting some of those wine I used to drink, I kind of came back to Tavel, which is also one of the producers in the book, and just like, where have you been all my life? And I just fell for it, right away. And then, um, without knowing, the rest actually in that time had bought a vineyard in Provence. I started exploring as well, and found a lot of, some of the old brands I used to go to were still bad. Mateos, excuse Mateos, very important, iconic photo of Jimi Hendrix and him in the bottle. But that was still bad. Uh, but I found so many new kind of producers I never heard about before, and it was kind of revelation, and it kind of brought me back to wine because I was just like when he went down to my wine cellar, looked at the same stuff. It's just like I was not passionate about it
Hmm.
anymore.
Hmm.
And wine and passion to me is two
Well,
kind of equal things.
absolutely, and you make a great point. As the population ages, I think it gravitates towards lighter wines, not just overall
Yes.
health concerns, but as we age, we want to moderate consumption. So that would make complete sense in terms of why people would be going toward rosé. Um, so if people wanted to kind of immerse themselves in the world of rosé, where would you tell them to travel? Would you suggest Provence, or where should they go? Tavel, we haven't had a chance to explore Tavel, I just should mention so that people have a grounding, but it's a region in the Rhone Valley of France that makes only rosé and makes pretty full-bodied, very flavorful rosé. Um, and I think it was the king was passing by there and said it had a duty to make rosé. It was the best wine in the world, or whatever. But so, where would you advise people to visit? Tavel, Provence, or would you tell them to take a road trip around some different regions?
Well, I might be biased here, but I probably would recommend them to start with Provence. And I mean, give me a call and come by and have a glass. Uh,
Oh, you'll get people taking you up on that.
I mean, Provence is a heartland of rosé, and it's not only about what's been going on the past 15, 20 years. I mean, rosé has been big in Provence for many, many years,
Yeah.
and today I think it's about 90, 95 production of all wine production is rosé. And as we've talked about a lot now, that some really good wine is being made now. but please allow yourself to explore the world. Uh, Go to Champagne and see how they deal with rosé. Uh,
Yeah. Where
the
it's the most expensive champagne, the rosé champagne.
Exactly,
The hardest to make. Yeah.
because you need to, and because of the red wine you put into the champagne also needs to be from the Champagne area, and actually it's quite tough to do a good red wine in this with
Really
Pinot Noir
cool
in this cold area.
climate.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Absolutely.
with global warming, it's getting easier.
Yeah, that's true.
And then you have the kind of the old wine countries like Spain and Italy, and they
Right.
are on the move. But Spain
With rosé.
produces a whole lot of rosé, but still a lot of
Well,
it.
and you mentioned Heredia, like another one that we didn't get to dive into because of time, but they age their rosés 10 years before they release them. Is that correct?
They do everything opposite from everybody else. I mean, most producers want their wine to be fresh, no oxidation, and they actually want to put it on the market just after they have picked the grapes, just to cut it short.
Right.
Lopez de Heredia, they put the wine in big oak barrels where they get a lot of oxidation, and then yeah, they age the wine for at least 10 years, and I mean it's a splendid wine. It's really, I mean this
It's
is
wild. It's
is
wild.
really a great wine. It's, however, it's very difficult to get because they produce a very low number of bottles, and actually every now and then, some years they don't produce rosé wine because they don't think the grapes are good for rosé wine that year. So,
This skip
Well,
five
that makes another
vintages.
reason to go
Yeah.
visit them.
but
Oh,
but then
wow.
Germany is developing. United States, we have two producers, Daewoo from California and Wolfer from Long Island. They seem to be following this Provence style rosé, but the pale, crisp, dry wine, but using different grapes. Well, Daewoo also uses um, um, Grenache, but Wolfer has the workhorse of their rosé wine is Merlot, and I mean, so even though the style is the same, you have some differences, and this is what you experience when you dig into the world of rosé, is that you find out that rosé is not just rosé. It's very
No.
diverse, and it brings you a lot of great experiences.
Absolutely. And I have to add, in Canada, our rosés are spectacular. We have a cool climate, of course. We excel at Pinot Noir, Riesling, cool climate Chardonnay, but the rosés, both still and sparkling, are pretty amazing. It's just most of them don't get outside of the country because the production is small and artisanal, but rosés in Canada are very much worth
Where in
trying.
the
So
where
you
in the
have to come
country?
here.
Yeah, we'll have to go.
Natalie,
Well,
where in the
yes, you
country?
must visit. So Niagara, yep,
Yeah.
Niagara, which just borders the U.S. The
Yes, it's
Okanagan
Buffalo.
Valley in BC, Nova Scotia, yeah, the Annapolis
Yeah.
Valley, even the Quebec in the eastern townships, another one of the warmer areas in Quebec. Those are the four major grape producing rosés. There's fruit wineries in other provinces, but those are well worth visiting. So
I was
I
up
would
in
urge
Nova
you to
Scotia.
for your next edition. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I was for wine tasting, and we had Riesling, and we also had Gewürztraminer. That was pretty good. And
Oh
we had some
wow.
Canadian, and we had
Yeah,
some
there's a lot
Canadian
of German there.
ice wine. Yeah, we had a lot
Yeah.
of not a lot.
Yeah.
We tried a Canadian ice wine, which was really good.
Yeah. Where were you tasting? Which winery?
I don't remember. We visited 5 different ones
You
in
don't.
2 days, and I was actually
Oh.
up there doing a
Oh
photo
wow.
session, and we had like some extra time. It was a wild ride.
Yeah.
So there was our producer who was local who said, "You got some extra time? You like wine? Sure." Like we just like yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's terrific. This has been terrific, this conversation. I want to thank you both. Is there anything that we haven't covered? I know there's parts, we'll have to have a part two sometime, but is there anything we haven't covered that you want to mention before we wrap up?
I just want to show the camera I used. I brought it up here.
Okay.
That actually, I mean, that gave us a lot of challenges as well as some
Oh,
great experiences.
camera.
That's the camera.
It's
Yeah.
like old-fashioned, like accordion,
Yeah.
like
Yes.
not the lens, but the attachment
You
to
just
it.
need this.
What does that do? Oh, and he puts the thing over his head,
Yes. Yes.
like the old-fashioned kind. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that what you were using to photograph the book?
Yes.
to use all
Yes, it was.
that Jens used for all the portraits.
All the portraits
Wow.
of the winemakers in the book, and as again as Star said, it was like an homage or respect to kind of show that how much we appreciate that we want to be part of the book, but also to show that winemaking is difficult, and so can
Yes.
photography be.
For us,
Yeah.
for us, it's a way to show that I mean that this is professionalism, it's craftsmanship, it's artistry. I mean, and I mean for that reason we don't use stock photos. My writing is not based on press releases. Everything we write is something that we have experienced, and we really hope that I mean that this joyride that it's been to make this book, that when you read the book, that you can actually feel this and all these experiences that we have had, and we've just mentioned a few of them here today, Natalie, that you just get a hint of them, and
Yes.
maybe it gives you the urge to visit some of the places and travel around the world
Absolutely.
and get some
I
of the
think,
experiences
yeah.
we've had.
Your book would be actually a perfect bucket list, like a checklist. Your 13 producers, read the story, the backstory, and then go visit. Like, I think that would be a great way to organize vacations for the next 13 years at least. I think that everybody should get your book and have fun with it that way. Or at least do a tasting at home with all the wines you tasted.
Yeah. So Natalie, do you have
This
a
is
favorite?
wonderful.
Natalie, do you have a favorite?
A favorite, well, rosé is my go-to, and I tend to
Yeah.
drink Tavel. I kind of
Okay.
buy it by
I
the
do.
case. And the one that I really love is Chateau de Caria, D''Aqueueria, de Caria.
Yeah.
I just love it. It's the Saunier method. To me, it's got all the flavor of a lovely red wine. I used to drink Pinot Noir a lot, but I've kind of migrated to rosé, but none of the downside of oak, tannin, high alcohol, whatever. Like, well, the alcohol can get up there with Tavel, but I just find it a refreshing drink because you can chill it too.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Sounds
Well,
good.
thank you so much, both of you. I mean, this has been marvelous. I could definitely talk to you for a couple more hours. But where can we find you both online, you and your book?
So we actually have a dedicated page on Instagram called the book Rosé Revolution, and I mean, we're a little too old for the game of social media, so we're not very good at it. My personal one is Jens Honoré on my Instagram account. That's a lot about that book there too, and then we of course are with our names on Facebook, where we've written about it, and the release parties and the different podcasts we've been on, and so on and so on. And then the book is available online or Amazon.com, Barnes and Nobles, and so on for the North American market.
Probably Indigo chapters as well. Fantastic.
Yes.
We'll put all those links in the show notes so that people can find you and find the book and order it. So I'm going to say thank you so much, but don't log off just yet. It's been marvelous talking to you, and I do highly recommend your book to everyone listening. So cheers and congratulations on the book.
Thanks, Natalie. It's been a pleasure. Thanks for having
Thank
us.
Thank you.
Okay, take care.
You
Bye
too.
for now. All right.